Okay, so we're going to look at the next couple of properties here. We looked at the first three, which are arguably the most important three, that distributive, commutative, and associative. Now we're going to take a look at the additive inverse. So the additive inverse, this should be familiar. We talked about this in Unit 1, definitely. So the additive inverse, we have that a number and its additive inverse will always sum or add to 0. So if I take a number like 5 plus what gives me 0? Well, 5 plus -5 gives me 0. So when we're talking about additive inverses are simply just opposites. Additive inverses are opposites. So, for example, if I have -4, the opposite of -4 is 4. If I have positive 2/3, the opposite of positive 2/3 is negative 2/3. Opposites meaning that the sign changes. You're changing the plus or the minus. And then we had that example of 5 plus -5 giving us 0. Boom. So right along with those additive inverses are your multiplicative inverses, your two inverse properties, one for addition, one for multiplication. A number and its multiplicative inverse will always multiply to 1. So if I'm looking at something like, let's go with -1/3. -1/3 times what number is going to give me 1? Actually, let me zoom in on this so I don't need to write that big. -1/3 times what number is going to give me 1? And that just happens to be -3/1. So when you are looking at multiplicative inverses, this is really just the reciprocal. It's the reciprocal, aka flip the fraction. And when you're talking about this one, the sign doesn't change. Let's make a little note of that off to the side over here. This one, the sign doesn't. That's not nice looking, doesn't. The sign doesn't change. If it's positive, it's staying positive. If it's negative, it's staying negative. All you do is flip the fraction for that multiplicative inverse. Another example, I have 3/5. The reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse would be 5/3. You flip that fraction. So there are inverse properties.